Hello guys, welcome back to another video. I thought in this video we're gonna cover what we can expect next week, because I do think the Bitcoin market is heavily dependent on the stock market, which we're also gonna cover in this video. So we have to see what the stock market is gonna do next week when we open again, and most likely Bitcoin will follow what the stock market will do. So if we jump here back into our chart right now, we're well on our way to create this fifth wave to the upside, as we've been talking about, and we're speculating most likely the top is going to be this median line here. Depending when we reach it, that most likely going to be the fifth wave, and that's when we want to exit the bull market. These median lines are heavily used by algorithms, so we're just waiting for price to reach this median line again. Something that does concern me is I see a lot of people are starting to bull post again. I do think the sentiment is flipping very bullish very quickly, which can mean two things. One thing is we're not going to get another all-time high, which I highly doubt is going to happen. I do really think we're going to get an all-time high and we're going to reach this median line. But I do think what's going to happen, the sentiment is going to get overly bullish. People are going to expect for some 200, 300K targets on Bitcoin, which in my opinion is not going to happen. I've said this before. I don't think we're going to ever break this median line here. I do think we're going to reach it, maybe make a wick through it on the weekly time frame. And then most people are going to be super bullish, waiting for 120K, 150K, 200K. And that's where the top is going to start, and we're going to enter the bear market. So that's my guess right now, which I do think and I would like to happen, because I don't like when I see the sentiment is getting too bullish too quickly. This means that most retail is already in the market expecting further upside. So that's kind of my look on it. I do think the top is going to be closer to us than we believe. Just as previous bull market, when Bitcoin came up here to 64,000, most people were expecting 10K on Ethereum, expecting 100K on Bitcoin, and that's where we basically topped. We topped way below 100K. Just I do think many people are going to expect 200K this bull market, but the top is going to be much lower than people are going to expect. Just something to be prepared of, because the higher we're going to go, the higher targets you're going to hear people calling for. Just as back here when we hit 70K, and I did mention that we hit resistance, I actually got the most amount of backlash on my analysis, saying people are like, they said, you don't know what we're talking about, we're gonna go to 100K, 200K, the bull market is just starting. That's when people were saying when we had broken the all-time highs, and we can see what that led to. So let's jump into the closer time frame, the smaller time frame analysis here on the 4 hour. Just as we said yesterday, we're expecting more sideways here since it's weekend, it's Saturday right now, so nothing much has happened. I still think this is the most important pitchfork on the shorter time frame here on Bitcoin that we're looking at. So I'm looking at the original right now. I would really like to see price move up to touch its median line, which has been our target. But as I mentioned before, there is a chance, in my opinion, that I'm wrong about this and we won't go to this median line, because on the 4 hour it does look fine. But if we zoom out here a bit and we'll come to the daily time frame, we have to see how impulsive the move need to be to the upside to reach this median line. Just something to keep in mind. There's a possibility we're not going to reach this median line. That doesn't mean we can still go higher, but it might mean that we'll never touch this median line. But so far, I would like to see, especially on Monday open, some big green candles come in. If we can break this resistance, I think it's very likely we're going to then quickly make some big green candles, which are going to take us to 70,000. Something to keep in mind. That this pitchfork is still valid as long as we're above the 0.5 line here. It does look bullish. If we would come to the downside, the next support I'm looking at is here on the modify shift and the shift pitchfork. They're quite similar. So somewhere we can start with the modify shift. It has a slightly higher target, which is about 61,500. I do think that's going to be strong support. Also, if we pull from the lows to the highs, we have the 0.31, which is correlating with the shift pitchfork. So ideally, if you're a bull and you're not already in the market, ideally would like to see something like this coming down to 60K before then we'll continue higher. This would be your ideal scenario. I think we're not going to get such a deep pullback. I do think the modify shift is more likely, if we're even going to get a pullback at all. And then we could use another low up here. So we could use from the second wave if we had this as a smaller time frame Elliott wave count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So something like this. I don't like to use too much these fib tools on smaller time frames. As we can see in the past, if we take from this wave here up here, we already kind of had looking at this, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So kind of already made, and we can see here how we had the fourth wave at the 0.31. So market sometimes likes to correct further down than the 0.31, especially on smaller time frames. So I rather use pitchfork for here. So as I said, the next target for me is 6,300 61,300 if it would pull back. But so far, I'm still expecting us to move to the upside and most likely touch this median line. And this median line is going to be heavy resistance. So if we start getting something like this here on Monday, Tuesday, then most likely we're going to have a deeper correction. But even if we don't reach this median line, we still have, if we come here on the daily time frame, the most important pitchfork apart from the macro one is this one right here that we have been looking at, which I think everybody should add on their chart. So we take from the bear market lows here, first wave to the third wave to the fourth wave, we come here on the modified shift. And I like to go, also we can see on the modified shift, we're currently at resistance, but if we go here on a normal scale, in my opinion, this median line is very likely we're gonna hit. So no matter if we would pull back, even if we chop around, the direction is overall higher. We need to remember we still had quite a few, had 1, 2, 3, 4 green, maybe now a 5th green day in a row on Bitcoin. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get some price fluctuation here, some kind of sideways. Either we're gonna correct in, usually price either likes to correct side in time or in price. So we might do something like this before then we'll continue higher. So that's what I'm looking at right now. Something else which I do think is gonna cause Bitcoin to slow down a bit here is if we check the Bitcoin dominance. So this is something I covered in yesterday's video. The Bitcoin dominance has just hit this macro pitchfork here, and we can see what happened. As soon as we hit it, we created this nice wick, and right now would like to see a trend reversal. Doesn't mean we have to correct this entire trend. I'm not calling for Bitcoin dominance to go down to 50% or even 40%, but I would like us to come down to 55%, and either this small move here on the macro chart is going to be insanely bullish for altcoins. So just remember, for next week, if we're going to break to the upside, even if Bitcoin would continue to go sideways, I do expect Bitcoin dominance to continue come down, and that's going to be very bullish for altcoins. So if we see this in the Bitcoin dominance, this small move that you're seeing here, even if it's just about 4% to the downside, that's going to affect altcoins massively. We can see here earlier this year when we had this small move to the downside, the altcoins really took off. Just something to remember. This also could be the start of a bigger trend reversal, so we just would continue down. Personally, I don't see that happening, but if this would happen, altcoins will go absolutely parabolic. So good to keep that in mind. I do like trading Bitcoin, but in my Discord myself, I do like to long quite a few altcoins right now. I'm looking to long rather altcoins now than Bitcoin. We can also see on the total 3, so the total altcoin market cap we've been discussing. We've had this pitchfork for some time. This was our original target. We can see here from the previous bear market to the bull market, top to the previous bear market. We can see how the algorithms sold at the median line, very typical behavior. Then I had this as my second target. With time, right now we did have quite long sideways price action. So when we're up here, I said if we could do something like this, I did think this median line was possible. Right now, I still am bullish on altcoins. I still think we can see we haven't ever broken the previous all-time highs on the total altcoin market cap. But I do think it is possible we can make new highs here, yearly highs. But to reach this median line, I have to see. I don't want to start calling for these crazy targets yet, because we have to understand this would cost like some insane 140% or 150% for us to reach this median line. So I don't want to start giving these insanely bullish targets when I think it's less probable we're going to go to this median line than it is. But if we can start getting some impulsive move here to the upside, maybe climb above the 0.5 line here, then we can start discussing about this median line. But overall, we can see it looks like the altcoins wants to change trend. We've been in this downtrend for quite some time. But once we break here around 628 billion, then I think altcoins are going to have some very impulsive moves to the downside, which is going to cause Bitcoin dominance also to go down. So far we're predicted this move quite nicely here. As soon as we had our target for 58.5, we predicted that perfectly, and we can already see quite a few altcoins taking off. That's what I'm looking at right now. Right now, I would like to cover the stock market a bit. I think this is the most interesting chart, even for you crypto traders. I know this channel, I mainly cover crypto, but myself, I actually trade everything like commodities, stocks as well. So I do find this fascinating, and we can also see here, if we add the Bitcoin chart on top of the stock market, we can see how nicely Bitcoin has been correlating to the stock market. So we can see as every time the stock market makes new highs and move to the upside, usually Bitcoin tends to follow. So my idea has been that the most important chart is actually what the stock market is going to do. As long as the stock market continues higher, which has been my view, then Bitcoin is going to follow. So unless the stock market is not going to pull back here and we're going to enter some kind of bigger pullback, some kind of temporary recession or a bigger recession, I think Bitcoin is not in any danger. This is the pitchfork again, which I want to discuss a bit, that goes all the way from 1974, then to the highs we had back in 2000, and then to the recession we had in 2009 that I think most people remember or have heard of, at least, a big recession. So this pitchfork is quite big. We can see here if I attach it correctly. So let me just attach to get the perfect targets here. It's important that you want, when you use this pitchfork, you want to add them precisely so you get the most accurate price data as possible. So as I've said, for those who have been following my Twitter, since the beginning of the year, the stock market has already done insane gains. We have to understand that the stock market usually does not move so much in 1 year. So if we take here from 1st of January, which I think was around here, which were more or less 21% already up since the beginning of the year. So that's already, the stock market has already made insane gains for this year. But I do believe, in my honest opinion, I do think the closer we're going to get, the more likely this midline is going to get reached. So in my opinion, a lot of people are calling for recession. I'm on their side. I do believe this stock market needs to correct. It's insanely overvalued. But I would like to see one final push here to touch this midline. I really like this pitchfork. I've studied this quite some time here, this pitchfork. I had this actually for years back in 2021. I actually thought we're gonna hit it here, but we can see price came down here, and I thought perhaps my pitchfork is invalidated, but we can see how price has managed to climb back up here, and we're getting day by day closer to this median line. So first, to reach this median line, the S&P needs to go to 7,300, which means another 23%, and this is something hard to predict. We can't know when. So the stock market could do something like this technically and then continue higher, but I do think this is going to be very difficult to push the stock market higher. I do think, this is just pure guessing now, but I do think we're in the last rally here. I don't expect us to see any major pullbacks yet on the stock market. I do think we need to start moving here quickly to the upside if this midline is going to get reached, and then basically we're going to enter a massive recession somewhere here, maybe August next year, maybe even sooner, depending when we reach it. If the S&P can pull off another 28% or 25% in less than half a year, in just 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 months max, maybe even 8 months, maybe even a year. But these gains are insane. If we come up here, then you know that most likely you're going to open a short, because for the stock market to have this massive impulsive move to the upside is going to cause very little selling pressure to then basically push the price down. So that's what I'm looking at right now, and I do expect the Bitcoin to top similarly like the stock market, because we can see in the past they correlate very heavily. You can see the Bitcoin usually tops here, or last time Bitcoin topped a little bit before then the stock market topped. So I do think Bitcoin is probably going to top a little bit before the stock market. Maybe Bitcoin tops here back next year in, let's say, I want to just speculate, let's say the Bitcoin will top here in January or February. Then we can see the stock market have one final move until July, and then we're going to enter a massive recession. And I do expect Bitcoin going to follow the stock market, at least short term. Forever, I'm not sure if this correlation is going to apply, but for right now we can see how nicely it has applied. Also, we see the stock market bottom a little before then Bitcoin bottom. So it's very interesting how you can predict both the highs and the lows by looking at both the stock market and Bitcoin. That's what I'm looking at right now. My Elliott wave count has been this here. We have a massive 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which I do think we're going to correct. And that's why also I do think this final impulsive move on the stock market is such an impulsive, because usually the fifth wave is the most impulsive one, is the one that makes the price go completely parabolic before then we enter a massive correction, which is going to be a worldwide recession, in my opinion, in this case, if I'm right. I would be surprised if we would do something like this and then come down and never hit this median line. In that case, I will be wrong, but I just haven't seen that happen. Usually how these median lines work, they work like magnets. The closer a price gets to the median line, the higher probability it's we're gonna reach it. So we're already super close to it. We already are past the 0.25 line. This is the last line I like to use on these pitchforks. So we're already above it. We can also see how it has been respected. We found support here on the stock market. So for me to not see this happening, I think this is actually very likely the more I look at it. Shorter time frame on the stock market, we had this as a smaller 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We called the bottom perfectly. If we take from the second wave to the third wave, we can see the 0.31 Fibonacci acted as perfect support once again. Right now, the direction is to the upside. I do think we're going to continue here to at least 6,100, which is a minus 0.236. So these are the only two fib tools I use. I do think these, you can try them out yourself. These are the most important, especially the 0.31. Algorithms like to buy the 0.31 and then take profits here. So all the way up to 6,142, I think we're good to go. And so should Bitcoin follow as well. So I do expect the stock market next week to continue higher, and most likely Bitcoin can break through this resistance, which is going to break this big downtrend. So we can see we have all of these highs here on Bitcoin are keeping liquidity. So we can see how they are stacked on top of each other. If we can start breaking this one here, then we have technically broken this big downtrend we have been in, and Bitcoin can start moving to the upside to around 69k. And then once we reach this target, then we can start talking about the original pitchfork, which is going to help us take us to the upside. I do think this original pitchfork is going to get reached as well, but as I said, I like to take one step at a time. As we started with the shift one, we can see since we hit the shift, we had a massive correction, 17%. Right now I'm looking at the modified shift. It's a market, we need to be prepared for everything, so it's important to take each level at a time. If we get something like this, and then we'll continue higher to the original. Since we're traders, we want to capitalize on all moves possible in this market, so it's important to keep this in mind. On the Ethereum chart, I'll just do a quick update here before I end the video. This is my weekly chart on Ethereum. So similar like on Bitcoin, I've been waiting for Ethereum to reach its median up here at around 6,000. Right now, Ethereum had quite a big correction. So from the yearly highs this year, Ethereum corrected almost like 47%, which is insane. So time has to show. I can't give you a prediction right now. I do think technically this pitchfork is very valid. It's very valid for Ethereum to climb up, have some insane returns here to around 6,000. Reach the median line before then we enter a bear market on Ethereum. But we have to keep an eye where Bitcoin is going to top, because you ideally want to see a correlation. If Bitcoin hits its pitchfork target before Ethereum and Bitcoin start correcting, most likely Ethereum is going to follow on the macro level, and in that case Ethereum won't have any power left to start moving to the upside while Bitcoin is moving to the downside. So far I'm actually holding quite a lot of Ethereum myself, so I would like to see some more impulsive moves on Ethereum. We already started seeing here where the Bitcoin dominance has been rejecting. So if we start getting a trend reversal on Bitcoin dominance, I do think Ethereum could make quite an interesting comeback here. So that's something I will keep you updated day by day. So if you're interested to predict the next recession to the tick, I'm actually going to announce my live trade here. I'm looking to short the stock market to the ground, just as I am looking to short Bitcoin once we get at the top. Make sure to hit the subscribe button. Please leave a like if you enjoy the daily updates. If you want more updates on altcoins and so on, just click the Discord. It's completely free to join, and I will see you again, guys, tomorrow.